Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go. It is your show for Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. I'm J.R. Stays, and joining me at our table at Tech Town is none other than producer Cheyenne Noserini. How are you?
I'm here, J.R. How are you?
That's exactly how I feel. I am here. The weather has been gorgeous.
It's been beautiful. J.R., where did we go today?
Michigan Central. Just for fun, just for a planning meeting, because there's been a lot happening in the world, a lot happening with the project.
Yes.
But we need to get some thought, some clarity. And you know where we did that? In Michigan Central Station over a yellow light donut and a breakfast sandwich. And it was glorious. Although I will note, it seems like they're going to be changing up that back area. When we went for the big reveal, there were these plants and this, they're going to shift this around.
It was there's still seating and there's still different like areas that you can sit at and tables where you can work at. But the art installations were not in there.
I feel like this is going to rotate. I do too. Have you seen on Instagram some of the wild weddings?
No, not yet.
Oh my gosh.
I can only imagine.
The amount of money being dumped on those weddings. I'm not even assuming, I'm assuming the booking fee is expensive.
Oh, I'm sure.
But then all of the other stuff around it, some of the stuff I've seen on social media, wild. It's like the place to get married now.
Of course it is. We knew this.
Let's get into some news.
Jer,
I'm exhausted with this.
That sigh tells me everything I don't want to know.
So as we are recording this, markets aren't doing great.
No.
We're not going to do the same show we did yesterday, but we could.
Right.
Because there's more about tariffs. There's now going to be more tariffs on steel, more tariffs on aluminum. I don't like living in this national news space, but the reality is we are an auto-centric town in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
This national news is just hitting us in the face. Like we try. Listeners, let me know. dailydetroit@gmail.com. One of the conversations we had while planning at Michigan Central is that we have to walk this line. I know that there's a lot of people who only want the fun stuff.
Right.
But as a journalist and a grown-up in the world who understands these things, who has experience, who, has access to talk to people for this show.
Yes.
I feel completely irresponsible if I'm always like, have a donut. Now, I will also mention where the best donuts are.
Right.
But I'm very torn in this because this is a moment I'll be honest, okay, there are things about this administration that I wasn't going to agree with, just like there were things about the Biden administration that I personally wasn't going to agree with, okay? There are things about Obama that I did not personally agree with. But I thought, okay, I've lived through
Trump .1.
I've Bush, left, right, it doesn't really matter. Like the swing and the pendulum swing, because of the speed of things, this feels different. Little example. In the past, it would be, okay, we don't believe in this thing. We're just going to cut off the funding the next cycle.
Right.
Completely normal, right? A completely normal thing would be, all right, we're going to cut down whatever thing this is.
Oh, it's going to go through Congress?
Right. And it'd be like, okay, well, all right, well, we're just not going to renew that. But we're going to pay off our bills.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what's happening here.
No.
This is this shock and awe, flood the zone thing. The market isn't reacting very well. This isn't great for the economy. I know that there is a belief set that this is what we need to do. There are things, with the Canadians now, ABC News is saying that as of April 11th, Canadians visiting the USA for more than 30 days will be required to apply for registration with the federal government and fingerprinted.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many layers to this. And I want to know what people think, dailydetroit@gmail.com. But Cheyenne, like as a producer, this is hard.
It's very hard to ride the line of a journalist, but also, like you said, a human living in this current timeline. And knowing that while we do need to be objective and have journalistic integrity,
truthful,
and be truthful, the problem is that when we are truthful, we're told that we're being liars because people don't like how they feel when we tell them the news. But also, as a person and as a human who has a child who is disabled, with multiple disabilities.
Things like the cuts to the USDA would affect you. Things
Right.
like cuts to Medicaid
Medicaid,
would affect you.
cuts to the Department of Education and his 504 and his IEP.
504 and IEP are for those who don't know.
Right. So a 504 is for physical accommodations in school for students or people who need special accommodations. An IEP is an individual education plan. So that is to say your child needs speech therapy. They need extra time on tests. They need their tests spoken to them instead of written out. So all of these are very important details for students who need these accommodations. My child requires so many medications to live. Like if he does not have access to this medication, my child will die. Period. They will die if he does not have access to his medications. My child has a severe bleeding disorder that can cause him to have spontaneous bleeds. And the reason he has the other current disabilities is because he had a brain bleed at 4 days old and did almost die. And so he is required to have those medications in order to live. If anything happens, if we lose electricity because Canada shuts off our electricity, how is my child's medication going to be refrigerated?
Well, to be clear, it's not necessarily that Canada's going to shut off the electricity, but the grid will become less reliable.
Exactly.
Because of the interconnections. It makes me think of this idea that our world has become extremely complex,
Mm-hmm.
and yet our media like TikTok have become extremely simple.
Yes.
Where it just fed to you in 15-second, 30-second things. And there's so much more. And this willful pushback against reality is, as somebody who grew up thinking facts mattered,
Yes.
the more and more I do this, the more and more it's vibes, man. We're in an era of vibes and it's terrifying.
Yeah, because vibes are not always the truth. Period. I don't know what to say besides that.
Let's get into a local news story that we normally do not cover, this sort of thing, but it has escalated quickly.
Yes.
So on Tuesday, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel announced charges against the owner and 3 employees at the Oxford Center in connection with the death of 5-year-old Thomas Cooper. Now, if you remember, in some outlets, it was talked about this death where a hyperbaric chamber exploded. And now there is charges being brought around that. So owner Tamala Peterson of Brighton, safety manager Jeffrey Mosteller of Clinton Township, and Gary Markin of Spring Arbor, the primary management assistant at the facility, each face 1 count of second-degree murder, a potential life offense, or alternatively 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, a 15-year felony. There's another charge. The operator of the chamber, Alita Moffat, is charged with 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, 1 count of medical records, intentionally placing false information on a chart. That's a 4-year felony. The Oxford Center in Troy provides therapy for children with various health conditions, including autism, ADHD, and autoimmune diseases, through hyperbaric oxygen therapy. This happened at the end of January, where the chamber caught fire from the inside and exploded. There's a lot to this, in that now we're getting into the world of therapies that don't really have a backing.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, from my opinion.
Yeah. So there are certain things that this therapy is FDA approved for. One of those are for like scuba divers who have the bends, right? Another one is for patients who have diabetic foot ulcers that just cannot seem to heal. Okay. And full disclosure, my mother is currently going through this same treatment.
Wow. So this is personal for you.
This is very personal. Like, this is like terrifying. Like, this happened. And then my mom tells me the next day that she is going to start this therapy. And I'm like, what? The same therapy that this little kid, died from. So that is terrifying to me, right? But her treatment is approved. The treatment for autism has been unfounded. And so they've been providing, allegedly, this therapy to children.
Crane's Detroit Business was talking about how there has been a lot of money able to be made from people
Yes.
who are looking to find any sort of answer to this. And this goes back to that whole vibes thing at the top of the show, right?
It's because insurance will not pay for this therapy for autism. Okay. So people are paying out of pocket for this therapy for their child.
Well, doesn't this also tie into the national thing? Although there have been a number of studies that show there are no real links to vaccines and autism.
Yes. That has been debunked.
But there are now going to be federal studies to do that under this administration. Again, vibes based. If you detect this change in my voice, dear listeners, it's because I am tired. I get called every name in the book, no matter what I talk about. So I'm just letting it out on the field. Yeah. I'm done. Like, I am done at this point when it comes to kowtowing to dumb.
Yeah. I cannot, in good faith, think that measles parties are a good idea.
When there's a great alternative.
When there is a vaccine for that. When it was basically eradicated in the United States, right? I do not want polio to come back. Okay? Anyway, the vibes check on these therapies, alternative therapies for things like autism, really?
As a parent of a child who deals with a number of issues, do you find yourself looking for solutions? Like, how do you feel about that?
I can understand getting a diagnosis and being afraid. My child has a life-threatening bleeding disorder. Now, there are gene therapies that have been approved for adults who have bleeding disorders, but not every person is a good candidate for that, and it doesn't always stick. So my child will always have a bleeding disorder. In fact, I might have a bleeding disorder, Jer. However, there are approved therapies and there are approved ways of doing things. And with knowledge, I look to my son's doctors and his entire team, and they are the experts, right? My son has one of the best hematologists that focuses on hemophilia in the country. And I trust her and her judgment. So I can understand being afraid of getting a life-changing diagnosis and wanting to find any type of treatment for that. But I would never put my child in a position to where it was unfounded.
A little bit of local development news. Luciano Marcone, right here at Daily Detroit, talks about on our site, if you go to dailydetroit.com, that Detroit's first church, St. Anne's Basilica, is going to get restored with a partnership between St. Anne's Parish and the newly formed The Catholic Initiative. $30 million in rehab of the Basilica. Built in 1886, St. Anne's is one of just 89 churches in the U.S. with this distinction. This partnership is approved. The Catholic Initiative is assuming all responsibility for maintenance and renovation, while St. Anne's Parish retains exclusive and permanent rights to use the property. Now, I don't normally mention stuff like this. By the way, this is being supported by the Pulte Family Charitable Foundation. I don't normally mention niche projects like this, but St. Anne's is such a part of all of Detroit history
It is.
that I thought it'd be important to highlight. You'll also find some renderings over at dailydetroit.com.
I think this is a great program. I think it's an interesting take on having the Vatican actually approve something like this, because generally the church doesn't really like outsiders having any kind of control over their buildings. So this is a very interesting partnership. And I do think the Catholic Initiative has like other plans for other churches throughout the Midwest. So I think this is the first one that they're working on, and then it'll expand.
Your faith is important to you. You're a Catholic.
Yes.
What does this signify for you in the community with St. Anne's being such an important church and frankly in Detroit's history? Because there have been multiple buildings, but wasn't St. Anne's the first, like the one with 1701 in the founding of the city?
It was.
Father Gabriel Richard, right?
Yes. So I think it's important that we are able to keep these old buildings intact. It costs a lot of money to keep a church open, regardless of the age of that church. So having these additional funds that are available to have it renovated and upkept. I mean, like this partnership is good for 200 years.
That's wild. I think about the number of historic buildings that need work in the city. I live in the North End. There are a lot of homes that need a lot of work, and it's so hard to keep up with them because of the materials, the sheer size. It's really an ongoing challenge, and you see it manifest in even larger buildings like the churches. There has been some interesting coverage of not a church, but something I thought was really interesting, and I shared it on the website a while back, was updates to the Slovak Hall. Something that's important to both of us. Both of us have a Slovak background. Over on the east side on Strong Street, there was so much community gathering space here that has really not been taken care of. And honestly, it's because you go down that street, there aren't many houses left. I'll be honest with you.
Well, let's face it. Like once St. Cyril's closed, all of the Slovaks had to go out to like 19 Mile and Ryan to go to St. Cyril's out there. And so that entire Slovak community moved.
So the church was tied to it. And so do you think that the church moved with the people or vice versa or kind of in sync?
I don't know. Like that's something that would be interesting to look into. I feel like there was a lot of people that were moving out. I mean, I know.
Because your dad got married at St. Cyril's, right?
Yeah, my mom and dad were married at St. Cyril's. I may have been there too. Anyway, there might have been 3 of them walking down the aisle.
Guess what? I may have been there too when my parents got married.
There.
Yeah, I was there. Actually, I was there.
You were there when my parents got married.
We are cousins.
Right. So anyway, I feel like they had started making plans to build that other church years before. And then once it opened, like everybody went out to Sterling Heights.
Yeah. Well, feedback as always, 313-789-3211. dailydetroit@gmail.com. Also, a couple of things to know. Go to dailydetroit.com/survey. We are looking for your input for the show.
Yes.
What you like, what you don't like.
Keep it nice. Please.
I mean, you know what? If you hate something, that's fine. Just be constructive about it.
Yes. Please, constructive criticism is okay, but just name calling is not great.
Yeah. I would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, thank you so much to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit. Local media requires local support to survive. So I appreciate all of you. We've got our Discord. We have got, by the way, a reminder, although tickets are sold out, we have our 313 Detroit Trivia Day on Thursday. I am pumped.
I am too.
We're working on revealing a new giveaway, a new version of a giveaway.
Yes.
That will be part of the prize pack if you win if your team wins the trivia.
It's very exciting.
I'm very excited. Tokororo, March 13th, 313 Day. I'm ready. I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. I'm excited. Mickey Lyons is running the trivia. We're going to have a variety of categories, so nobody's going to be left out. I'm excited. We're going to have our live show in between. We're going to play some games with the audience.
It sounds like so much fun. I feel like I've been told a little bit about what's going on, but I don't know everything. And because it was up in the air whether or not I was going to be able to come or not because childcare. I have children at home and my husband works nights, but he switched his shift around so I can actually be there.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Well, for now, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Oserini.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.